I'm Tricia Allerston from the National Galleries of Scotland, and I'd like to thank you very much for having me here, and also to Mags McNeill and colleagues at ETAG for inviting National Galleries of Scotland to spotlight our redevelopment. And it's a great honour and a wonderful opportunity to shine a light. Test the slides. Sorry, I should have had that at the beginning. I'll come back to it. So it's a great honour and a wonderful opportunity to shine a light, a whole new light, on this exciting new free visitor attraction in Edinburgh city centre. A new suite of galleries for Scottish art is at the heart of this redevelopment. We're very proud to be creating a new platform for Scottish art in the capital city. The project will also radically transform the experience of visiting the Scottish National Gallery, one of the city's busiest visitor attractions and an important element of its cultural offer. Right, as you can see from this wonderful aerial view, right at the centre of Edinburgh World Heritage Site. And I'd like to thank Historic Environment Scotland for use of this image. Now, the upstairs parts of the National Gallery have been open all through the development, pandemic aside. And during 2019 to 20, our last almost normal year before the pandemic, the Scottish National Gallery welcomed over 1.5 million visitors, so quite a high proportion of those 5 million that we heard about earlier came to visit the Scottish National Gallery in the centre of the city. In 2022, our visitor numbers were above target, and we also saw some interesting and very promising signs of transatlantic tourism reviving. Now, the upstairs parts of the National Gallery, as I'm sure you're all aware, show our world-class international artists like Botticelli, Rembrandt, Van Gogh, and Gauguin. So this is an important part of the project, an accessible path down into East Princes Street Gardens, where none existed before, together with new people-centred landscaping for all visitors to the gardens to enjoy. Both of these new resources are constantly and actively in use and were even before they were formally completed. And the image on the left, if it's your left, I hope it is, shows the day we opened the new path, and immediately, and it's not a staged photograph, it's just a snap I took, immediately the path was in use and has been in use ever since by the sort of people we hoped would enjoy to have a path that enabled them to get into Princes Street Gardens. The image on the left here shows how another important part of the project, the spacious and much more elegant stone terrace and stairs outside the gallery, were digitally represented in 2019 based on Hoskins Architects' designs. This visual and several others that I'll be showing are stills from a useful fly-through film on our redevelopment, which is on our website, on the Scottish National Gallery project of the National Gallery's website, if you'd like to follow through. It's very short. And the image on the right here shows the terrace successfully realised and again in active use for morning coffee in the summer. So when the sun shines, as it does in the digital visual, and when it doesn't, even when it doesn't, East Princes Street Gardens attracts a great many visitors, and it's done so for nearly 200 years, as this wonderful, it's a detail from a painting by Alexander Naismith, architect, who interestingly was one of a number of artists in Georgian Edinburgh that had their studios in St James Quarter, or St James Square as it was at the time. And with reference, if you can see, you'll see another detail, reference to Roddy Smith's talk earlier, scaffolding is certainly not a new phenomenon in Edinburgh. It's been happening for a long time. This is the building of what's now the Royal Scottish Academy building, which also featured in the trams, one of the visuals for the tram that we saw earlier. The main construction compound is the most visible part of our redevelopment, and this is the sort of view with which many of you who frequent the city centre will be familiar at present. Although it's hard to see behind the hoardings, there's a lot of activity going on as we enter into 2023. So shall we go inside? Through the new large main doors at gardens level, into the generous foyer with large new information desk and shop, up, if you're able to go up, the new grand staircase up to the new Scottish Galleries at the top, but there's also an accessible lift for those that can't, and these are all stills from the fly-through, and from that you get a very good sense of movement through this part of the gallery. All of these images are built on architects' plans and exhibition designer plans, so they're built on real, substantial information, as it were. A new, much larger, much higher spec suite of galleries is the key focus of our construction project. And these new Scottish galleries will be supported by vastly improved visitor access and facilities, including a large restaurant, which is already in operation, and shop. The shop's been extended quite considerably. The new accessible path, which I've already shown you, and there are all facilities, new toilets, a buggy store, the sorts of things you would expect in a top-rate visitor attraction, as well as new types of interpretation. Scottish art represents about 50% of the National Galleries of Scotland's entire holdings, and we aim to make this rich and much sought-after part of Scotland's cultural heritage much more available by presenting it accessibly at the heart of Scotland's capital city. Now, I'm showing you here a breathtakingly beautiful, and I'm not ashamed of saying that, it is beautiful, a breathtakingly beautiful watercolour painting by Margaret MacDonald Mackintosh, one of the so-called four who launched the Glasgow style as an international phenomenon at the end of the 19th century. Margaret MacDonald Mackintosh is also one of an increased number of women artists that we're presenting in the new displays. This is what the gallery used to look like, the place where we showed Scottish art. In spite of some stellar art, and that's a top David Wilkie painting on the left, and Raeburn's Skating Minister used to be on the other side of the wall in the centre, in spite of some stellar art, the steps here presented an obstacle to anyone with ability issues. The decor was dated. It was left over from an exhibition of Dutch art in Scotland that had been put up 20 years before. The 1970s lighting was intrusive, yellow, and unsustainable. And the furniture, and I'm so ashamed of this, the furniture was completely tatty and completely unfit for purpose. Now, we installed an intelligent camera for 18 months before we closed this part of the building, and it revealed that less than 20% of visitors to the Scottish National Gallery, less than 20% of 1.5 million people before then, ever managed to reach this part of the gallery, which was rather hard to find, despite its stellar contents. And the Skating Minister was our top retail item for a long time. It's in competition with the Monarch of the Glen at the moment, but we put one of our most popular, internationally recognised paintings in an area that less than 20% of people found. The next few slides give a sense of what visitors will encounter inside the new galleries when we open this summer. And we fully expect these digital visualizations to become reality, as happened with the stone terrace and stairs outside. Now, this is an up-to-date visualization of the first gallery that visitors will encounter on entering the redevelopment. To tempt visitors in and to invite them to explore further, we're presenting some of the National Galleries of Scotland's best-known and much-loved early 20th century Scottish artists near the new Princes Street Gardens entrance. Artists such as these, three of the four Scottish colourists, Francis Cadell, Samuel John Peploe, and J.D. Ferguson. Now, all of these artists are usually displayed at our Gallery of Modern Art in Belford Road, but audience research revealed that visitors to the city expect to see them at the National Gallery and are disappointed when they aren't available. Now, many of our visitors are the sorts of tourists that have been described earlier, who only have time, they're only in the city for a certain amount of time. If they're choosing one of our galleries to visit, it tends to be the one in the centre of the town, the National Gallery. So we had a lot of visitors who were going away disappointed because they weren't seeing things they wanted to see. To achieve this in future, we've extended the scope of our new displays to 1945, and we've also created special areas to feature light-sensitive works by many artists, especially modern artists such as Charles Rennie Mackintosh, who our audience research revealed was the most famous Scottish artist of all, although he was an architect, and his lifelong partner, Margaret MacDonald Mackintosh, whom you have already met. Now, to ensure that more than 20% of our future visitors enter the new Scottish galleries, we've radically changed the route into and through this part of the building, as well as the gallery's appearance. Now, as these two visualizations show, we've installed automated doors allowing direct, generous, hand-free access from the new Princes Street Gardens entrance. There's step-free access throughout the new gallery spaces, and the lower image shows the generous thoroughfare uniting 6 of the new galleries. There are more than 6 galleries down there. The new suite of rooms will be fresh, spacious, bright, and contemporary. It'll have light-coloured walls with regular pops of rich colour. And it will also, I'm delighted to say, have state-of-the-art exhibition lighting, which will be set by a state-of-the-art exhibition designer, or lighting designer. Now, these new displays will introduce key Scottish artists and art movements, such as Phoebe Anna Traquair, who was part of the increasingly popular late 19th century art movement, the Celtic Revival. And I'm showing you here, we have an amazing suite of 4 more than life-size embroideries, and I'm showing you the central image is one of those panels. There are 4, you get an indication from the exhibition design, plus a couple of details to give you a sense of the vibrancy and rich texture of these tapestries, which this amazing woman hand-sewed by herself while she was painting them. If you know the Mansfield Traquair Church at the bottom of Broughton Street, she was incredible, a real tour de force. And alongside these, we have this wonderful painting by John Duncan of St. Bride from 1913, which, whereas the embroideries have been in store and it's been good to give them a rest for a while, this has been on almost constant show upstairs with different lighting, with some natural light, and it's proven to be one of our top social media images. People love it. It shows St. Bride being carried from Iona across to Bethlehem, accompanied by seals and seagulls. The new displays will also feature the Glasgow Boys and some Glasgow girls, as well as Sir Henry Raeburn, and it's his 200th anniversary this July 2023. I'm showing you here images by Joseph Crawhall and James Guthrie. William McTaggart, the great seascape painter from Kintyre on the west coast of Scotland, will also feature. The Sailing of the Emigrant Ship is a fascinating painting that we rarely had room to display, and it's one of very few 19th century Scottish paintings to consider the human impact of the clearances, that harsh process of economic change which forced whole communities of rural inhabitants to leave their homes during the 19th century. Now, this important subject is of great interest to a great many of our visitors, but it's especially of interest to transatlantic ones, and it's also a key focus of our new displays. Picturing landscapes and framing the city will cover 200 years of Scottish landscape painting, which is a real strength of the collection. It also juxtaposes historic paintings of Edinburgh from the 18th to the 20th centuries with real views. We're talking a lot about views today. Edinburgh is an amazing city. That's why the views across this part of the city are part of the World Heritage Site. They're not just built heritage, it's intangible heritage that's part of the heritage site. And we look right out onto one of them. So we'll be juxtaposing images of the city from the 18th to the 20th century with real views of the World Heritage Site, and these views will be visible to the public for the first time through our new carefully positioned windows. And this is where Naismith's fascinating early 19th century view of Princes Street and East Princes Street Gardens, which is another very popular painting with our visitors, will be located. It's my last slide. So that's the end of my short spotlight on the new development at the Scottish National Gallery. I hope it's given you an idea of what visitors to the city will encounter when our construction project completes this summer. And I also hope it's whetted your appetites to hear and see more. And we'd love to work with you to celebrate Scotland's art at the Scottish National Gallery this summer. Thank you.